Hi, welcome to the School Community Huddle with Ana Martinez. This podcast is intended to help families, caregivers, other teachers who are actually working from home and having to deliver instruction in their own home or provide and set the stage for virtual learning in their own home. So it's just as a resource, families, and it's learning today from two amazing experts. If you can introduce yourself, your name, your years of experience in education, and grade levels or positions you've had within education.
Hi, my name is Crystal Lord. This will be my 19th year teaching elementary school. I have taught grades K through 5, particularly more years in first grade. I also taught 5th through 9th grade online learning to students who were in Taiwan. I did that for 6 years, and I went to Taiwan to meet the students. So that helped me this year with online learning because I had experience with that. And I'm a national board certified teacher. And that's
Congratulations. Welcome.
Oh.
For those of you that don't know, it is a high honor for a teacher to be a nationally board certified. That means she had to go through some rigorous steps and phases to get to be nationally board certified.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Makia Lacey, and I've been in education for about 12, maybe 13 years, starting off working in homes and also in schools with children with disabilities, mostly autism, doing behavioral therapy, managing behaviors, teaching parents how to work with their child in the homes, whether it be routines, even how to get them to eat certain foods. So it's been a lot through in that area. And then also working in the school as a teacher. I've been a reading interventionist. I've also been a behavioral aide for one-on-one with students. I've taught first grade, and I've also taught second grade. I did a little bit of kinder as well, but I have done a lot of teaching in those areas.
Wow, a behavioral expert here. I think all parents want to know what to do to get their child to do whatever it is that they want them to do. So I'm excited to learn from you two today, and welcome. So families, if you're just tuning in, today we are focusing on first grade. It is a fun grade. It is a beautiful grade, and they are still on their journey to unravel who they are as a student. So you know your child best, right? We are not neglecting that. You know your child best, but the hope of this show is that you learn your child as a learner, right? Which is what teachers do all the time. And they go through rigorous teacher education programs to learn the developmental stages of a child. And so, like I said, we're talking today about first grade. So I always start off with a story, and my story today is about me being in first grade. And I immediately loved school when I entered it in kindergarten, right? I did not go to preschool, and I was not the kind of kid that cried in the first few weeks, which is okay if they cry, and it's okay if they don't. Every kid is different. I've definitely seen all of them. But me as a first grader is when I first got kind of in trouble, and because I saw someone doing something mean to my 5th grade sister. We were walking home, and I said something really mean back as a first grader, thinking I was defending my sister. I don't even know if she'll remember that. But I, as a first grader, just wanted to defend the world, and I thought I could do anything and everything. And I quickly learned that there are ways to solve problems, and the way I went about it was not the way. So I'm wondering, does that make sense to what is actually happening in a first grade student's mind or developmental age at 6 years old? Because they're about 6 years old when they're in first grade. What does that story make you think about?
It makes me think about how children that are 6 years old or in first grade, how they have no filters.
Yep.
And how they're going to say what they feel. If it's right, they're going to say if it's right, they're going to say if it's wrong. They're really honest at that age.
And another thing to take into account is that they are still so little.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we forget that. And you have to teach them how to manage their emotions. And there's a lot of students are told, don't cry, but you have to teach them that it's okay to cry and feel these feelings, and to know that their teacher is there for them, and that as parents too, that they can come to you with anything. And that's why I know a lot of parents, it's very cumbersome to read 10 to 15 minutes a night, but I think that is so important because that's when you really make connections. It's not all about the reading. Kids will open up to you at nighttime when you're in their room, laying down next to them reading a book. They'll start talking about their day or if they've had a problem. So that's one of the real reasons I tell parents, please, we're so used to being on our phones and being disconnected. And it's so important to take that 10, even if it's 10 minutes to sit down with your child and read a book, that would make such a difference in their lives. So I think that's one of the key things through all this pandemic, through everything we're going through. If you can just take 10 minutes to sit down with them at night and just read to them and listen to how their day is going, you'll learn a lot about your child.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Were you going to add anything, Miss Lacey?
No, I was saying that's good.
Yeah, that is so good. What else are characteristics of a first grader / 6-year-old that parents should be aware of? So like no filters, they're honest, and they're still so little. Like what are some other characteristics of a 6-year-old that you typically see in August and September?
They need to basic life skills. And I think we forget to teach them that. I notice, I was raised in the 80s, so parenting styles were a little bit different. And I think now children sometimes are not taught to do certain things on their own because we don't want them to have as rough of a childhood as we did. So I think realizing that, please teach your kids how to tie their own shoe. I know we want to do everything for them, how to, brush their teeth, and just how to cut with scissors. As I've been teaching this 19 years, fine motor skills have declined so much with children. And I think it's important to get those fine motor skills, like have them get messy, make mud pies outside and play with Play-Doh. They need to be kids again and play outside. And so I think that's really fundamental. Like this generation is, always on playing Roblox or whatever games you want to, and also that exercise. I think that's really important to, I know we're in the middle of the pandemic, but if you can get outside even 20 minutes a day with your child and walk around the block, I think that's important to teach them how to appreciate doing things that don't involve the internet. So I think that's one thing kids need to learn, how to be kids again, because I think we do too much for them, and also they're not learning the basics that they need to know, like cutting with scissors. That's really important because it really helps their fine motor skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to piggyback on that, the physical activity is definitely very important. I know that they're very active in the beginning of the year. They're coming from kinder. They're still babies. And that's something to always keep into consideration. That they're still little kids. They need to get out. They need to move around. They need more breaks. They may need a few more brain breaks. I know when I was teaching, when we're teaching first grade, as I teach first grade, it's like, okay, we're going to get, when you get 5 or 10, when you beat the teacher versus student, we get a brain break. So it's like, you can do those things at home. Okay, well, let me allow you to go outside, just like you were saying, for this amount of time, and make it fun. If it is the computer, okay, well, let's do a go noodle instead of, you playing the game, but that activity is very, very important for their age and their growth. When it comes to developmentally, it's very, very important.
Yeah, and I want to stress what you both said, fine motor skills. And that is something that teachers are taught. And I think people might know what that is and might not know what that is. So can you explain to a parent who's never heard that word, what do you mean by fine motor skills? You said you said tying your shoe, brushing your teeth. What else would a parent consider?
Fine motor skills basically is developing the muscles in their little hands. And that's the biggest thing I could tell you, because students do not know how to write letters or numbers, even in first grade. So it's important to make it fun for them. So of course, when I grew up, I learned how to write my letters by writing them 50 times. And that's not really the best way to teach a student. You could have them write their letters in sand. You could have them make it with Play-Doh. They need to find different ways to make letters. And so that's what I notice with children that is declining, is the fine motor skills. So it's just about getting their hands, their little muscles in their hands. That's the biggest key of it.
Another activity I'm thinking about for fine motor skills is like using like the little prongs, or like I would say tweezers and picking up things with that. I think that helps a lot too. And then some kids, they have a hard time like even holding the pencil. And I know there's like a little gadget, I would say, that you would put on the pencil to help the student hold the pencil better, to help with their fine motor skills as well. And I'm thinking from even if you have a child with disability, I'm thinking in that aspect as well. But yeah, just like you said, working those little fingers and getting them for writing and everything else.
And if you go on Google, you could just as a parent, you could just Google fine motor skills for first graders, and there will be so much free information on things you could do at home. And just try to focus on one a week. Don't try to overwhelm yourself. And if there's a list of 25 things, just do one a week and switch it up.
Yeah, and 6-year-olds are so fun. I loved that age. We take for granted that I'm holding a pen right now. And we don't realize that at 6 years old, these teachers get training on how we have to like stop and show them, because some kids hold it like this, some kids hold it like this, and it literally sets the tone for the rest of their life. Have you ever seen an adult who holds a pen in a weird, different way? Like there's a way that people have found, they're called occupational therapists, have found that you can hold the pen best to, one, support your writing. And like writing doesn't need to be super neat. Writing, your personality comes out in your writing. So it's really about like, is it legible enough so that people can read it? Is it spaced out enough? Those are things that our teachers work on. But if your child cannot hold this pen at 6 years old, that's actually normal. What we usually do is we start off with either smaller pencils, we call them the golf pencils, or like Miss Lacey said, we bring something where the pencil feels fatter, or you might order pencils on Amazon that are thicker, wider, right? This is a really thin pen, but a 6-year-old might have trouble holding that. So you might want to start off with like a thicker type pencil or a smaller pencil. And if your child still has trouble with that, you might, like Crystal said, get chalk. That chalk is like fatter, and like do it on the sidewalk, or Play-Doh or sand, because what they're practicing is they're practicing the formation of the letters. Did you two want to add anything to that?
I just want parents to remember that children have missed 3 months of kinder. They are also going to first grade. So typically I would walk around the classroom to make sure that they're holding the pencil right and helping them with letter formation. So they're going to be lacking that skill. So that's something you really could do at home. I think it's going to be crucial because kinder and first grade is when they develop how to write. So that's one of the most important things. You might say writing letters is a big deal. It really is. And it's fundamental in kinder and first grade. So have some patience with yourself and your students, but they've already missed that one-on-one instruction. So we need your help with that.
And then also to piggyback on how you hold the pencil. Also, I learned that if you hold down the wrist a little bit, like maybe with 2 fingers, as they're writing, it helps with the stability of them holding the pencil. So it'll be more stable and their writing will be more accurate. That's just like a little strategy that they can use. So not only teaching them how to hold it, but also to keep the stable wrist.
They do that.
Yeah, exactly. But just kind of hold it down. That keeps the writing So that's a strategy.
And how much time, and that's something any caregiver can help with, right? Like that abuelita can help with that. The older aunt can help with that, or the high school student can work with that. And I think that's, people are like, how do we start? And it's like, well, they can do those kind of things. And so how much time can they be spending on that? Because to your point, Crystal, having them do something 50 times, like their attention span is not there as a 6-year-old. What's an appropriate amount of time that they can practice maybe fine motor skills a day?
I would just, it depends on the child. Like if they're really interested in it, you can just spend as much time as you want to. But if you need to get 5-10 minutes in a day, just focusing like on the letter A, on the lowercase letter A, or any, and just make it fun. But you don't want it to be this thing when they're frustrated and upset, and you just have to make it fun and try not to, like I said, I remember being, oh, I have to write again. You don't want them to have that attitude about it. So 5-10 minutes, but if they can go longer, go longer.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, I would say like maybe depending, like you said, depending on the child, maybe they'll start off at 5 minutes. And then maybe when you see they're getting better, okay, now I'm going to set it for 10 minutes. So you can always build up with the increments of time and make sure you set a timer. A timer is always like, it's close-ended. It's like, okay, well, is it 10 minutes yet? Is it 10 minutes yet? And it's like, okay, set the timer. And it's like, give them the responsibility. It's like, okay, set the timer for 10 minutes. We're going to do this writing for 10 minutes today. And when it goes off, you'll be done, and we'll try again either later or tomorrow. And if it's a daily thing, like I said, over time, you can increase the amount of time that you allow them to do it. And then also maybe add a picture. So, okay, you could draw a picture first and then start writing, and that maybe they like to draw, and that's more of a funner activity. And it's like, okay, well, I've drawn the picture. Now it's time to write, right? And maybe you'll give them a few minutes to draw the picture. And it's like, okay, now I'm going to set the timer for you to write. You can even add that time together. But it just all depends on, like she said, your child. And then also just their attention span. And over time it'll get better, and you'll be able to add more and more time. But make sure you set the timer so they'll know, okay, the timer's off, especially for a kid who really doesn't like it. Yeah. Right? It's like, this is the clear expectation. You only have to do it for this amount of time.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about independence. So I think that's something people don't realize kinder and first grade teachers work on, right? Independence, because typically there are babies. They're so cute. Oh, I just love kinder and first grade. I love singing with them. I love playing with them. So it is such a cute age. And it is so natural to be like, they're so darn cute. And when you have 30 of them as a teacher, they stop looking cute. You're just like, okay, I need to make sure little humans learn, right? So one thing that we don't talk about enough is how we're making them independent. And I think when you get them in kinder or in first grade and you're in their classroom, they're usually like, Miss Lacey, tie my shoe. Miss Lord, can you get my pen? Miss Martinez, can you do this? And I think it's because you can tell, like, they're 5 or 6 in their home. They're typically the baby or the only child, so they want to do everything for them. And it's in school that they learn in that independence. But now they're in your home. How can parents help with some of that independence at home so that when they do go to 2nd, 3rd grade, they're not expecting their teacher to do everything? What are some things parents can do at home, or caregivers?
Well, I know that was a big thing in my classroom, independence. So big. And I know, we have the individual jobs that helps with independence, at school. And also, I think accountability for each other, like helping each other out, help them to be able to use their social skills to help other friends to help them, and different things like that. And when you think about home, say, for example, a schedule, right? A school schedule. And I know that's something parents like try to figure out, like, well, how do I make their schedule? It's like, allow them to be a part of making schedules and things that have to do with them. So it's like giving them the option. Okay, so what do you think? Do you think you should have 2 breaks? Do you think you should have, 4 breaks? And allowing them to use a sense of their independence and what they want to make like their own schedule, or, or help you to make that schedule. Have them set the timer at night, like for like bedtime. It's like, okay, well, in the morning, you have to wake up at this time, set the timer. just small things, giving them certain responsibilities, because at that age, they want to be responsible. They want to do a whole lot of things, and giving them different responsibilities to do to help build that independence and reinforcing them. Like that reinforcement will build that independence. Like, oh my goodness, you did that by yourself, and I know with my children, they've always been kind of independent. My daughter want to cook her own eggs. I'm like, okay, you can't use the stove yet. So it's like I give her little jobs to do at home, which helps build her independence to want to do other things independently. Even with tying a shoe, I taught them I taught them the basics of how to tie the shoe. And they're like, no, I don't want you to help me anymore. They're like, I want to do it myself. And they learn how to tie their shoe at 3 years old. You know what I mean? So I think we have to let go as parents and allow them to be independent by giving them certain responsibilities to build that independence.
Crystal, you have anything to add?
I was just going to say one major thing I noticed with students is that they talk differently to me than their parents. And so I think just as far as it's teaching them how to be respectful. So I think you need to be very mindful of how you let your children talk to you, because they need to know they can express their frustrations with you and if they're upset, but there's a way to do that. And in the classroom, we teach them how to do that. They can't throw their pencil down when they're upset with me. They need to tell me what is wrong. So it takes a longer to understand what the behavior is about. But I think if you could teach kids how to do that, you're going to teach them how to become independent thinkers and learners, because you need to teach them how to speak to other people when they're frustrated. So like first grade, that's when tantrums could kind of stop and those types of behaviors, because I will see kids like throw themselves on the floor in first grade. I'm like, what are you doing? And they're just like, oh, this doesn't work with her. And they get it. And, like if you just don't, and I know it's hard because it's your child, but if you're at Target and they're like, start throwing a tantrum because you won't buy them the dollar bin, then guess what? You can be like, okay, we're going to leave. And you can go to Target another time. Like you need to teach them that. And it doesn't need to be taking them to the bathroom and giving them a little pow pow. Like you don't need to do that. You could just tell them, okay, we're going to go now. And they're like, what? So you need to just teach kids how, they're first grade. So certain things should stop, like tantrums, and they need to learn how, okay, you're growing up and how to deal with their feelings. And we can talk about it.
I love that you said that, because I think tantrums is something parents are working through and struggle through. And now you have to teach at home. And so, oh my goodness, the tantrum all the time. And so you said something, one, they're learning to be independent that age. But here's one thing about this 6-year-old. They're very savvy at 6 years old. They know with who and they can do what with. So that's why maybe with Miss Lord or Miss Lacey, they'll be like, oh, I have to get my own pencil, my own snack. I got to ask for permission to do this. But here with this adult, like, give me my snack. They'll not manipulate, but they know how to push boundaries because they're getting an awareness of the environment, right? And they're learning how to use the environment to some extent. So parents, remember, you are enough. What you've done has been great. However, there are some habits that you may have implicitly or explicitly started creating in your child with no judgment. We love you. You've done a great job. Parenting is hard work. And these are some of the skills that a school probably would have helped you with, because, for instance, if a child is having tantrums, because in the first 2-3 weeks of school, there's a lot of crying in kinder and in first. Like they don't want to go, they're tired. Partly they're scared, partly they're anxious, partly they're sleepy because they hadn't have to wake up at 6 a.m. in the summer, right? And so they just cry for all three of those emotions. So this is where social emotional learning comes in, because it manifests in a really explicit emotion or physically, like my stomach hurts, right? And so what our teachers do, and I've seen Miss Lacey in particular do this, like, okay, so tell me more about that, friend. Like, why are you on the floor crying? Or why does your stomach hurt? And then when you find out more, you might be like, oh, that sounds like you're a little anxious for school. That's what we call anxious, because you're giving them the vocabulary word, and you say, oh, the next time you're feeling anxious, like your stomach's hurting, you feel hot, or you feel like crying or yelling, you can do this instead. And I don't know if you all do this. Can you give parents a sentence stem that you probably would have done to either stop the tantrum? And it takes so much patience on the time of the adult, because when you see a child crying and yelling and there's 29 kids that you got to take care of, your anxiety raises, right? So what sentence stem would you use for a child that's having a tantrum or doesn't want to do it? I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And like, it's boring or I'm sad. Like, what would you do at that point? A sentence stem a caregiver can give at home.
Let the child calm down too, because when they're upset and crying and you're like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? And you need to give them a moment. So make sure you have somewhere in the house and not a timeout corner, just sometimes they call it a cool down corner, or there's so many fancy names you could call it other than a timeout corner. You don't want to associate their behavior with, oh, I'm in trouble. So somewhere where they can just, maybe their favorite stuffed animals are there, or there's a pillow they like, and where they can be like, you know what, sweetie, you need to calm down and just go relax. And when you're ready to talk to me, come talk to me. And then once they calm down, just ask them like, what's going on? What is the problem? And have a conversation. And I know that's really hard with 29 kids. You don't have that luxury of doing that. So I would just say, we're going to talk about this at recess. And so let's come and talk about and I always say you're not in trouble, because kids always need to know that they're not in trouble, because they always think if they express themselves, they're going to get in trouble. So make sure you, like with what I would do in my class, and then we would talk at recess, and then I would find out they were upset about, as parents, sometimes when you argue, you don't realize the kids can hear you and they're in the other room. So sometimes I would find out that kids heard a fight their parents were having in the morning, or they didn't get to, their grandma left back to, especially after Christmas, a lot of families come from Latin America and then they leave and they go back. And a lot of kids are traumatized by not having their grandmas and grandpas around. So there's so many things going on that you need to have time to talk to them. And I know it's hard as a parent, especially if you have other kids in the house, but just to talk to them. But you're not going to get anything out of them when they're in that stage of just being crying. Give them a moment to breathe, relax, just like you. Just think about how you would feel when you're really upset. You don't want to talk about it. You just want to take a moment and then come back. So just give your child that time, and also get on their level. Nobody wants you to talk to them like looking down at them. It's really important to get down, like crouch down and talk to them face to face, hold them. So that's very important. So that's what I would do. I'd get down at their level and talk to them. And I would try not to have the conversation in front of other children, because then they'll be censored. So try to have the conversation to the side.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. And then to add to that, if you think about another sentence stem, just, do you need time to calm down? Just, do you need time to calm down? It's okay if you need time to calm down. And like you said, whatever space in the home that's safe for them and it doesn't feel like a timeout, right? And send them there. And then also, when you think about social emotional learning and the steps, it's like stop, right? Breathe. Talk about your problem. So it's like, stop. Do you need time to calm down? Breathe, and now once you're ready, we can talk about it. And it's, I use that in my home. So we've taught it in school, and I've transferred it to my house. And, we say use the turtle. So I've sent home a picture of the turtle. I don't have it with me, sorry. A picture of the turtle, and it says, remember to use the turtle. So the students in my class, they put it up in their home. It's on the refrigerator in their room. And it's like, take a picture and send it to me. So parents are now reminding the kids to use the turtle, and the kids will tell their parents, remember to use the turtle, to make sure that they calm down. And in my home, what I do is I model. I think the biggest thing is your children knowing that, I wanted what Crystal said about, the arguing, but if I'm modeling breathing and calming down before I, throw a tantrum or get upset, because we throw tantrums too, it just looks different, and it's like, if I'm modeling that, so I would model breathing for my kids. Like when I get a little upset and I start breathing, I'm like, okay, mom, we see you're upset. Like they'll call it out. Right. And then it's like, if one of them, like one of my kids would get upset, they would tell each other, you need to breathe. Or if I start to raise my voice, mom, you need to breathe. So I think it's very important that not only, we give them time to calm down, we also model the behavior that we want them to have. Do you need to take some time to calm down? That's okay. Express, I'm angry. Don't be mad if they say I'm angry. My daughter says that all the time. Like, it's okay to be angry. It's okay.
Emotions are normal. Yeah.
It's normal. Emotions are normal. And I think in our society, we have been taught that certain emotions are not normal. It's not okay, in certain areas. But that's how we are built, to have emotions. I kind of veered off, but just modeling it. Like you said, give them time to calm down, teach them breathing. And then also after that, whenever you're ready to talk, or maybe at this time we can talk. I've also had students in the classroom. They would get upset. They were crying because they knew they knew they did something outside the classroom, right? And when they got to the door, they knew my expectations. So they were upset. So the other staff could not get them into the classroom. So I talked to him. I said, do you need time to go to the calm down spot? I said, do you need time to calm down? He's like, yes. I said, well, when you're done, then we can talk about it. And I didn't even have to call him over. Like when it was the next break, he came to talk to me. So it's just about, us teaching them how to do it before they get into that situation. So before you even get upset, I need to teach you that skill. So then when you get into that situation, you'll use that skill. Right. And I had already, we're already teaching the kids in school, but as parents, let's talk about when we get upset, what can we do instead of throwing tantrums? What can we do instead of, kicking the door? Let's think of some things to help us calm down before we do those things. We don't want to try to teach them that in the moment of that anger because it's hard. So it's like before that even comes up in the beginning of the year, especially, when they have to do the work, let me start teaching you the skill, right? Yeah.
So I'd love to summarize. So it's pretty much
a lot.
Safe. No, it was great. Let them feel safe. Validate their emotions. You're feeling angry, or you can give them the word, or it looks like you're feeling, because they'll correct you. No, I'm not feeling angry. So validate their feelings and give them the vocabulary word for it. Meet them at their eye level, and then give them a strategy. So stop, breathe, and then you can Google different strategies too for that as well. But I really appreciate that, because it takes a lot of patience on the caregiver. And I know that. I know I've tried these strategies with my nieces, and I'll forget because they're my own blood, right? Like, they're my nieces, so I want them to get it. But in reality, like, this is going to help them become social, like adults that understand the emotional intelligence of themselves and other people. And I really, really appreciate that. I want to transition us into some of the instructional pieces. And both of you said learning through play. So I think people, when we think of school, we think about like remote learning, memorization, especially in first grade. You want them to know all the numbers. This is when they're learning like addition, single digit. They're learning counting, things like that. But let's talk about learning through play. Because this is what research shows is the best way for the 6-year-old to learn. That doesn't mean you're letting them play just freely. When you are letting them play as a teacher, there's thoughtfulness around it. So what are some ways that a parent can teach through play at home and for any given subject area?
I particularly like to teach my students UN goals, and you can look that up online, but their goals to just teach students how they can care about the world that they live in. And one of them is how to conserve water, and teaching them what other people in other places go through with not having access to things. And one story I like to read my students is called The Water Princess, and it just tells about a town and it's still happening currently, where they have to walk miles to get water. So my students learn about it and we understand it. And then we have them build with blocks. And so when I first saw students building with blocks, I'm like, that's a waste of time. What are they doing? But it's amazing to see the conversations kids are having, because we had them build different water systems. So what does a water system look like at an amusement park? What does a water system look like at your local park? And have them build things. And it's amazing to hear them say, no, that wouldn't work because then the water couldn't get to it's just amazing. So if you could buy wooden blocks for your child, or even I know I've been buying from Amazon nonstop during the pandemic, but cardboard boxes, and have them make forts and tents and just different things that they can build with. And when they build blocks, you could tell them, how do you build a city? And what would you need to do that? And have them build it and just hear them talk. And you can talk about money, and you can talk about all different things like, okay, well, to, get a pool, we would need, $100, let's just say. And then you could have them count by fives, like just simple things like that. But building blocks really leads to access for first graders. They love it. And so again, blocks are expensive. They are like $50 to $100. So again, Amazon boxes, anything you have at home would work. So that's something that I would recommend.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. There's so many for learn through play. When I think about, I'm thinking about like building learning through play and learning math. Just how like kids can have like dice, with the numbers on it. And it's like you roll the dice, and it's like you write down, okay, 2 plus like 4 equals, and then counting those dots, right? And that's something really simple, I think, that you can do at home. It's inexpensive. Also, piggyback, love the block idea. In my classroom, we have pictures. So you have pictures of like a school. You may have a picture of a church, or you have a picture, and I would be like, oh my goodness, you guys are architects. You guys are like, I would build it up like, oh my goodness, what are you building? And like, Miss Stacy, look what I built this. So I would like take pictures of it, right? Like of like whatever they built, and they have pictures. So parents can have pictures from magazines or anywhere, that the kids can, try and model, what to build there. But there's so many different things. And like you said, you can always Google learning through play. There's so many things that you can do at home with your children.
Yeah, I love that. I think we think learning has to be worksheets. Learning has to be sitting at a desk all day, but they don't realize how much movement. I think you said it earlier, Ms. Lacey, like movement breaks that you have that are intentional. You call them brain breaks, but you also just move them from because their bodies can't sit still for that long, right? So you're just like, okay, now we're going to go to this center. We're going to move here. We're going to stretch. And I love the idea of using your environment to play. And I'm hearing this is the creativity piece. You want them to practice their creativity, build something that you've never seen before, or build something that you have seen with these resources. I think that's so much fun. That's why first graders in kinder, they love their first and kinder teacher, because there's so much learning through play, right?
Yeah.
And another thing really quickly, it's essential that first graders learn how to break down 10 so that they know 7 plus 3 is 10, 5 plus 5 is 10, 4 plus 6 is 10. If you can have your child learn that, that would be amazing. And one of the ways I do that is by counting collections. Again, that's something you can Google to find different ways. But you basically have kids go to the kitchen and be like, okay, go ahead, go 10 things from the kitchen. And they pick 10 things, pasta shells, gummy bears, and you just start playing with them. You're like, show me 2 gummy bears. Well, if I have 2 gummy bears, how many more would I need to make 10? And they're like, 8, and just make it fun. And so if that's one thing as a parent, you're like, what do I do this year? If you can have them break down and understand sums of 10, so what makes 10, that would be amazing.
Mm-hmm. And then also when you think about groups of 10s, because I wrote that down actually, about 10s and like beans, food, like cereal, right? And it's like, okay, because they need to know number-based 10 in first grade. And it's like, okay, you can make groups of 10. How many groups of 10 do we have? 1, 2. And if we count by 10s, how much or what is the amount of 2 groups of 10? 20, because that is something that I've noticed that many first graders get confused by the groups and the amount. So I have 2 groups of 10, but how much do 2 groups of 10 make? And that was motor skills, counting them out, getting them out of the bag, right? Grouping them into the different 10s. I think that will really help. And that was just to piggyback off of what you were saying, but yeah.
I appreciate that. And a lot of these kids, to your point, Crystal, may have missed months of kindergarten. Mm-hmm. In kindergarten, a lot of the skills are, conceptually understanding numbers. So like this is 1 pen, this is 2 pens. So like a number isn't just this abstract thing we write on a paper. It actually symbolizes how, like, a representation of something. So you can use your house, like, get me 10 objects, get me this. Okay, put 2 objects back. How many will I need for 10? I love these strategies. Let's transition into reading. What are some of the beginning reading strategies that a typical first grader would be learning in August and September that you're starting to transition them in, right? Because we're building their stamina.
Because it really is the foundation of reading. Students need to know how CVC, consonant, vowel, consonant. So if they can really understand how to spell hop and rat and hat, that is a huge deal. So if you could focus on teaching them 3 little words, we call them CVC words, consonant, vowel, consonants, because English is one of the hardest languages to learn. So if you can teach them the different vowel sounds, that would be key in the beginning of first grade. So you might say, that's so easy. It really isn't. A and E sound a lot, when you listen to it, but doesn't that sound like A? It really is key to learning. So I tell parents, that's the one thing you can do is focus on those CVC words. That would be an amazing help to us, because the goal in first grade is for them to write a paragraph before they leave us on one subject. And a lot of kids, aren't able to do that if they're not at that academic level. So if they could do that, that would be very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate that.
And then also to add to that, just in the beginning, making sure that they know their letters and sounds. Right? Because even before the CVC words, you have to know your letters and sounds. And a lot of times, some of our EL students, they have a hard time like with those sounds and, recognition, letter recognition, sound recognition. And then also sight words. First grade, they really put emphasis on sight words, because most of the books at those levels, at like maybe the C, the D, like going into like E level, which are for parents, they probably don't know, but these are the levels for first grade in the beginning. They have a lot of the CVC words. Also, they have a lot of sight words starting off at the simpler ones. And a lot of times kids are able to, maybe sound out the CVC words, but they don't know their sight words. And that's what holds them back in reading. So whatever list of sight words that your parents, that the teachers are providing for you all, make sure they're studying their sight words. Maybe you want to do 5 a week, 1 a day, and kind of do little assessment with them to make sure they know those sight words, because all books have and, all books have on, all books have, CVC words, sight words, or we call them rainbow words. And it depends on what school, high frequency words, different schools call them different things. I think those are also very important things they need to know to be really great readers as well.
I love that. And parents, don't get scared of like, my child's so behind. I do want to talk to the school about retaining, because everybody's on this boat right now. So don't jump to that. Talk to your child's teacher about how we can accelerate the learning, right? How can we use some of the gaps that they might have because of what happened in the spring to catch them up? Because kids are so smart. Like, they learn so quickly, which is why they say this is the age to teach them a foreign language, because their brains can actually capture it much faster than maybe an adult like me, right? Trying to learn a third language. So I love the idea of CVC words, and it's usually a consonant, vowel, consonant, which is like, D-A-D, dad, D-O-G, dog, right? Like, you're just learning how sounds are put together to make a word. And then to Miss Lacey's point, there are high frequency words that are in almost every single book that kids should just be able to like understand and like recognize. So if your child's teacher has them, ask for them. Like, do you have rainbow words, high frequency words? And if they don't, feel free to reach out to me and I'll give you a few resources, but you can probably look them up online as well. And I like the idea of books, right? We're not going to give a grader a chapter book. We're probably going to give them a book that's more at their level, with like one character in the book with one sentence per page that reflects the drawing on that page, because they can make associations. And to Crystal's earlier point, if you read to them, you can read a harder book to them. for 10, 15 minutes a day, and then start having conversations. Because one thing is comprehension, like learning, like what is the book telling us? What is the story? And they'll make connections to their own life. And that's connected to social emotional learning, which I really like.
And just really quickly, parents, one thing you can do the first day of like first grade, have your child just say, oh, write a sentence about a cat or anything. And don't be scared. They might write Y, X, B, C. And that might be a sentence, and you will freak out. You'll be like, oh my God, what's happening? And then in June, ask them that same question, and you'll be amazed even if their progress is writing one sentence or two sentences, kids in first grade are like sponges, and reading is like a puzzle. Sometimes one day I had one student, he didn't know how to read that well, and then it was like about April, all of a sudden I'm like, what happened to you? Like it just clicks for them. So don't give up. When you see first grade, when you do that first writing sample, and then when you see what they have in June, you'll be like, oh, you'll feel so much better because you'll see progress. So don't be scared if you ask them to write a sentence today and it's CXYM. Mom, it says the cat is black. And you're like, oh, Lord. Like, don't worry about it. That's completely normal. It's developmentally appropriate. Normal. Yeah, so just give them time and it'll click and you'll get there. So that's one way you can have for yourself. Because I would do that. I have them do a writing assessment every month just so I can see the growth. And my writing assessment's always fun. It's like, write about a shark. And so the whole year we write about a shark one time a month, and I can see the growth in the writing.
I love that. We're coming to an end. I feel like I can have this conversation for hours. And so I have to invite you two back because there's so much that happens in first grade, and you two are such amazing experts, and I appreciate that. I want to sum up a few things. And while I'm summing up what I heard for today, I want you to think about what is just one thing that you want parents to like walk away with, or a resource they can use at home to help their first grader. So what I heard is this is the age of independence. So like, let's start making them independent by having them do small chores at home. I like the idea of talking to them about their schedule, maybe posting it so that they see their independence and like they'll see what they're responsible for, and like a timer so that they're always doing the same thing around the same time, because kids like routine. And then motor skills, work on their motor skills, brushing their teeth, tying their shoe, holding a pencil or a chalk so that they can start learning how to grip things, right? And then talking to them about their emotions. What is it that they're feeling? Seeing them, validating them, and then giving them a strategy that they can use instead of whatever they did, or praising them for doing the right thing, right? And then there's so much learning through play. So you're thinking, I have a small apartment, I have a small home, I'm taking them to my mom's home. Well, how can you use that as the learning environment? I think if you've ever walked to a kinder or first grade class, you see things are labeled, right? So that kids are implicitly seeing table, and they're seeing the table is labeled with the word table. So eventually they'll learn how to read it. And base 10, the number 10. So like 10 objects, how much more do you need to get to 10? How many groups of 10? And then lastly, the reading, just like reading with them, letting them identify some high frequency words, and then being able to associate letter sounds with creation of words. And I love, and if your child is at home with a caregiver that only speaks Spanish, then that they can read to them in Spanish. They can talk to them in Spanish, because in kinder and first is where there are a lot of dual immersion schools that speak to them in one language. And so as long as they have a foundation of speaking or reading in a language, they can actually learn faster when they're reading or where they're learning a different language, which is really great. So Crystal or Malkia, what are your one takeaway for a parent or a resource for a parent or a caregiver?
I think the most important thing, parents, you need to realize we're going through a pandemic right now, and it's going to be very difficult. But I think the number one thing I want you to know is the most important thing that you need to tell your kids is that you love them, that you're supporting them, and all of these kids are going to be behind because we're all going through this. So just remember that and just do the best you can every day. The teachers are doing the best they can. And as long as your child knows that you love them and that you're there for them, I think that's essential. And if you could just take, 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day to focus on a certain skill, then that's amazing to me. So just be gentle on yourself. But the kids that I notice that are most successful are the ones that know they are loved. So I think that's very important. So if that's one takeaway from this, that's more important than anything else. So if you could just do that, if the kids are secure and are teach them self-confidence and that it's okay to fail, that's the most important thing for me.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that, Crystal. Also, I give yourself grace. You're not teachers, you're parents, and it's challenging. But I think one thing that could really help you is keep the same routine. Try to keep the routine of when they went to school. Have them wake up in the morning, brush your teeth, wash your face, get dressed. Have them have their spot wherever they need to sit. Maybe you guys can figure out that spot together. I think when you guys do it together, it gives them more accountability and responsibility. And it's like, I chose this spot. No one chose it for me, and give them that comfortable spot, whether it's a chair, a pillow, and maybe even they may even like doing their work in bed. Maybe they're more successful like that, and that's okay. But that routine of them doing things in order, the way they did it when they were in school. All right, you got to get up. Okay, let's brush our teeth, wash our face. It says you're still in school, right? And like Anna said, that routine is going to keep them going. Right, that consistency. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one last thing, parents, don't be afraid to ask your teachers if you have no idea how to use Zoom, if you don't know how to write an email. I mean, this is new technology. I had a parent, she couldn't find the delete button on her screen and she FaceTimed me and she's like, I feel so stupid. I'm like, you're not stupid. You're just nervous and you don't know, so please reach out to your teachers. If you can't contact the teacher, reach out to one of your friends and have them practice Zoom with you and practice Zoom with your child before school starts. And so reach out to those tech savvy people. A lot of the younger kids in their 20s, they know everything about technology. So reach out to them. So make sure you let the teacher know, I have no idea what to do, and that's okay. So just don't forget to reach out to people to support you through this.
Definitely.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate you two taking the time to be here today. And I want to close and say the intention of this podcast is not to give you a list of 20 million things for you to do or compare yourself and say, oh my gosh, I'm not doing any of those things. Not at all, which is why I continue to say you are enough, parents. You are enough. And what you're doing and what you're embarking on is hard. And you're also going through it. We don't know your circumstances. We're all going through something, and it's heavy and it's an emotional situation for all of us. And I want to let you know that we love you. We appreciate you embarking on this, and that whatever you're trying, it's enough. And the intention of this podcast is to say, if you could take away one thing from today and you tried that one thing, then you were successful. That's it. You can watch this podcast several times. And I'm hoping that you can ask questions, you can give feedback. Was this helpful? And or if you want to hear more, let me know and reach out to me in the comments below, or reach out to me on Instagram on Ana Martinez _410. It's Ana with one N. And let me know questions or like what you want me to talk about or who you want me to interview, because it's really to help you help your child better. And whatever the challenge is, we know everybody's situation is different. Have grace with yourself. Have grace with others. We're all in this together. I appreciate you, parents. Thank you, caregivers. Thank you for all you do for our kids. We appreciate you.
Oh, and one last thing. I'll be having first grade tips on my Instagram. My Instagram is, I have to look at it, UCLA Lord, LORD. And I'll just be sharing to get blue light glasses for the kids, simple little things. Make sure you have maybe wireless headphones because the kids take the laptops off. So things like that. So if you're interested, please feel free to join me on that. platform.
Please follow her. I follow her I've known her for several years. I follow her. I was like, I need to have her on this show. She gives you so many great resources. Please follow her. Just know, Crystal and Malkia, you are enough, and your children and your students are lucky to have you this fall. And I know you're going to work hard to make sure that, you know, all children are being served in your classroom. So thank you for what you do as well as teachers.
And thank you so much, Anna, for just even allowing us to be on this platform. It's well needed. You're so awesome, and you definitely are enough. And we got this.
We got this. We got this together, y'all.
We got this together. Parents, we got this.
We got this. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.